The scream that tore through the desert air died on Penelope Ashford's lips as her brother's horse disappeared into the canyon, leaving her crumpled in the dirt with blood spreading across her shirt like spilled wine. She pressed her hand against the knife wound in her side, feeling the sticky warmth seep between her fingers, and wondered if this sun-scorched stretch of California trail would be the last thing she ever saw. The year was 1874, and she had trusted Marcus with her life, with the small fortune their father had left them both, and he had repaid that trust with a blade between her ribs and words that still echoed in her ears about how he would not share what was rightfully his alone. The July sun beat down mercilessly as Penelope struggled to breathe through the pain. Every inhalation felt like fire spreading through her chest. She had known something was wrong when Marcus suggested they travel together from San Francisco to the silver mines near Virginia City, just the two of them without hiring proper guards. Their father had been dead only 3 months, and Marcus had grown increasingly bitter about the will that split everything evenly between them. She should have seen this coming. She should have known that greed could turn blood against blood. Her vision blurred as she tried to sit up, but the movement sent fresh agony radiating through her body. The trail was empty in both directions, nothing but scrub brush and distant mountains shimmering in the heat. No one traveled this route in the height of summer if they could help it. Marcus had known that too. He had planned this carefully, waiting until they were miles from anywhere, until there would be no witnesses to his betrayal. Penelope closed her eyes against the glare of the sun and thought about dying. 22 years old, and it would end here in the dust. She thought about her mother, dead since childbirth, about her father, who had worked himself to exhaustion, building a shipping business in San Francisco, about all the things she would never do, never see, never feel. The pain was becoming distant now, which she knew was not a good sign. Her hand fell away from the wound, too weak to maintain pressure. The sound of hoofbeats registered somewhere in her fading consciousness. More than one horse. Penelope tried to open her eyes but could not manage it. This was how it ended then. Either rescue or more trouble, and she was too far gone to care which. Christ Almighty. The voice was male, rough with shock. "Madam? Madam, can you hear me?" Strong hands touched her shoulder, her neck, searching for a pulse. Penelope forced her eyes open and found herself looking up at a face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. She could make out a strong jaw covered in several days' worth of stubble, concerned eyes the color of creek water in winter. "She's alive!" the man called over his shoulder. "Barely. Bring the medical kit." "Is it safe?" Another voice, younger, more uncertain. "Does she look dangerous to you, Tommy?" "Move your ass." Penelope tried to speak, to warn them about Marcus, to explain, but only a weak sound emerged from her throat. The man leaned closer, and she could smell horse and leather and sweat on him. "Easy now," he said, his voice gentling. "Don't try to talk. You've been hurt bad, but we're going to help you. My name is Lucas Yates. I'm a cattleman, not an outlaw, and I give you my word that you're safe with us." His hands moved to her wound, and Penelope cried out as he pressed something against it. The pain snapped her back to full consciousness, sharp and overwhelming. I know it hurts," Lucas said. "But I have to stop the bleeding or you're going to die right here. Can you tell me your name?" "Penelope," she gasped. "Penelope Ashford." "All right, Miss Ashford, stay with me now. Tommy, hold this cloth here while I check for other injuries." The younger man appeared in her line of sight, barely more than a boy, really, with frightened eyes and shaking hands. He pressed the cloth against her side, while Lucas ran careful hands over her limbs, checking for broken bones or other wounds. "What happened?" Lucas asked, his attention focused on his work. "Who did this to you?" "My brother." The words came out bitter. "Marcus. He wanted our inheritance. All of it." Lucas's hands stilled for just a moment, then continued their assessment. "Your own brother left you out here to die?" "Yes." Son of a bitch, Tommy muttered. Watch your mouth, Lucas said automatically, then looked down at Penelope with something like fury in his eyes. How long ago did he leave you? I don't know. An hour, maybe less? Which direction did he go? Penelope closed her eyes. North, toward Virginia City. But please don't leave me here to chase him. I cannot. We're not leaving you, Lucas interrupted. That bastard can wait. Tommy, help me get her on my horse. We need to get her somewhere I can work on this properly. They lifted her as carefully as they could, but Penelope still screamed at the movement. Lucas mounted behind her, one arm wrapped around her waist to hold her upright while keeping pressure on the wound. She could feel the solid warmth of his chest against her back, the steady beat of his heart. Where are we going? She managed to ask. There's an old way station about 3 miles east. It's abandoned, but it'll have walls and shade. Can you hold on that long? I'll try. That's all I'm asking. Tommy, you lead. I need both hands to keep her steady. The ride was agony. Every step the horse took jarred the knife wound, sending fresh waves of pain through Penelope's body. She bit down on her lip until she tasted blood, determined not to scream again. Lucas kept up a steady stream of words, telling her to hold on, telling her she was doing well, telling her they were almost there. His voice became an anchor in the sea of pain, something to focus on besides the hurt. The way station appeared like a mirage in the heat, a weathered wooden structure that looked ready to collapse. Tommy dismounted and rushed ahead to open the door while Lucas carefully lowered Penelope from the horse. He carried her inside, and she caught a glimpse of a single room with a stone fireplace and dirt floor before he laid her on what looked like an old bedroll someone had left behind. Tommy, get water from the well outside, as much as you can carry. Then start a fire. We'll need to boil it. Boil it? Tommy asked. Yes, it helps prevent infection. My mother was a doctor's daughter. She taught me a few things before she passed. Lucas knelt beside Penelope and carefully began to unbutton her shirt. She tried to protest, but he shook his head. I need to see how bad the wound is, Miss Ashford. I'll be as respectful as I can, but modesty isn't going to matter much if you die from blood loss. He was right, of course. Penelope closed her eyes and tried not to think about a strange man undressing her as he peeled away the blood-soaked fabric. She heard his sharp intake of breath. How bad? She whispered. Could be worse. The knife went in between your ribs, but I don't think it hit anything vital. You're lucky. Another inch to the right and it would have punctured your lung. Lucky? Penelope repeated bitterly. Yes, that's exactly how I feel. Lucas glanced at her face, and something that might have been sympathy crossed his features. Fair point. But you're alive, and I intend to keep you that way. He worked with quick efficiency, packing the wound with clean cloth to slow the bleeding while Tommy built a fire and set a pot of water to boil. Penelope watched Lucas's face as he worked, seeing the concentration there, the determination. He had a strong face, weathered by sun and wind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. His hands were calloused and scarred, but surprisingly gentle as they tended her injury. How old are you, Mr. Yates? She asked, more to distract herself from the pain than out of real curiosity. 28? Why? Just wondering who I should thank if I survive this. When you survive this, he corrected. And you can thank me by telling me everything you know about your brother. Where he might be headed, what he looks like, anything that might help track him down. You're going after him? Someone has to. A man who would do this to his own sister isn't fit to walk free. Penelope felt an unexpected surge of gratitude. You don't have to do that. You don't even know me. Lucas looked up from his work, and their eyes met. I know enough. I know you didn't deserve this. I know your brother is a coward and a would-be murderer. That's all I need to know. Tommy returned with an armful of cloth that looked like it had been torn from an old shirt. Lucas took it and began to clean the wound with boiled water, and Penelope bit back another scream. Her vision went gray at the edges. Talk to me, Lucas said sharply. Stay awake. Tell me about San Francisco. I've never been to a city that big. Penelope forced herself to focus. It's loud, crowded. The bay is beautiful, though. All those ships coming and going. My father owned 3 of them. Owned? He died in April. Heart gave out. He was only 53. I'm sorry. So was I. So was Marcus, or at least I thought he was. But I suppose he was just sorry that he had to share the inheritance with me. Lucas was quiet for a moment as he continued cleaning the wound. How much money are we talking about? Close to $80,000, plus the ships and property. $40,000 each. Tommy whistled low. That's a fortune. Yes. Apparently worth killing for, in my brother's eyes. Did he say anything before he attacked you? Lucas asked. Penelope closed her eyes, remembering. He said that father should have left everything to him as the eldest son, that I would just marry and give it all to a husband anyway, so it made no sense to waste it on me. He said he was taking what should have been his all along, and then he stabbed you. Yes, I didn't even see the knife until it was in me. We were standing close together, looking at a map. He was my brother. I trusted him completely. Lucas's jaw tightened. I have 2 sisters myself. The idea of harming either of them makes me sick. Your brother is lower than a snake. He worked in silence for a few more minutes, then sat back on his heels. All right, I've done what I can for now. The bleeding has slowed significantly. You'll need stitches, but I want to make sure the wound is as clean as possible first. How's your pain? Terrible, Penelope admitted. I have some whiskey in my saddlebag. It'll help. I don't drink spirits. You do now. Doctor's orders, and I'm the closest thing to a doctor you've got out here. Tommy retrieved the whiskey, and Lucas helped Penelope sit up enough to drink. The liquid burned going down, and she coughed and sputtered, but Lucas made her take several long swallows before he was satisfied. A pleasant warmth began to spread through her body, dulling the edges of the pain. Better? He asked. A little. Good. Now I need to stitch you up. This is going to hurt like hell, whiskey or no whiskey. Tommy, hold her hand. Miss Ashford, you can scream if you need to. There's nobody out here to hear you but us, and we won't think less of you for it. Penelope gripped Tommy's hand hard enough to make him wince as Lucas threaded a needle with what looked like fishing line. The first stitch made her cry out despite her determination to stay quiet. By the 3rd, she was sobbing. By the 7th, she was begging him to stop. But Lucas kept working with steady hands, murmuring apologies, until finally he tied off the last stitch and sat back. It's done, he said. You did well. Most men would have passed out. Penelope was shaking, tears streaming down her face. I would have preferred to pass out. I know. I'm sorry. Here, drink some more whiskey. She drank, grateful for the numbing effect. Lucas bandaged the wound with clean cloth and then covered her with a blanket someone had left at the way station. You need to rest now, he said. Your body needs time to heal. What about Marcus? What about him? Aren't you going after him? Lucas glanced at Tommy, then back at Penelope. Not until you're stable. I'm not leaving you alone out here, and Tommy doesn't know enough about treating wounds to watch over you by himself. But every hour you wait, he gets farther away. I don't care. Your life is more important than revenge. Penelope felt her eyes filling with tears again, though whether from pain or gratitude, she could not say. Why are you being so kind to me? Lucas looked uncomfortable with the question. It's what anyone would do. No, it isn't. Most people would have ridden past, not wanting to get involved. You stopped. You helped. You're staying to make sure I'm all right. That's not what anyone would do. That's what a good man does. He cleared his throat and stood up. Get some rest. Miss Ashford, we'll talk more when you're stronger. Penelope watched him walk away, and despite everything, despite the pain and the betrayal and the fear, she felt something like hope stirring in her chest. She was alive. Against all odds, she was alive, and she owed that to the green-eyed cowboy who had stopped to help a stranger bleeding in the dust. She drifted in and out of consciousness for the rest of the day. Sometimes she woke to find Lucas checking her bandages or giving her water. Other times she heard him talking quietly with Tommy, discussing what to do next. Once she woke in darkness and panicked before she saw Lucas sitting by the fire, keeping watch. He looked over when he heard her stir. "How do you feel?" he asked, coming to kneel beside her. "Like I was stabbed by my brother and left to die in the desert," Penelope said, and was surprised to hear herself laugh weakly. "But alive, I suppose." "Alive is good. Here, drink some water." He helped her sit up, supporting her with one arm while holding the canteen to her lips with the other. The water was warm and tasted of metal, but Penelope had never been so grateful for anything in her life. "Where's Tommy?" she asked. "Sleeping. We're taking turns keeping watch." "You think Marcus might come back?" "I don't know what to think about your brother. A man who would do what he did is capable of anything, but I'm not taking chances with your safety." Penelope looked at him in the firelight. "Why are you doing this, really? You could have left me with water and supplies and ridden on. Instead, you're spending days of your life caring for a stranger." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "My sister Rebecca was 19 when she ran off with a man we all thought was charming and kind. Turned out he had a mean streak a mile wide. He beat her, Mr. Ashford. Beat her so bad one time that she lost the baby she was carrying. She was too scared to come home. Thought we would judge her for her choices. A neighbor finally got word to us, and my father and I rode 3 days to fetch her back. When we got there, she was so broken down, so full of shame, that she couldn't even look us in the eye." He paused, his jaw working. "I swore then that I would never stand by and let someone hurt a woman if I could prevent it. So when I saw you lying in that trail, bleeding from a wound your own brother gave you, there was no question of riding past. I helped you because it's the right thing to do. Because if someone had found Rebecca sooner, maybe she wouldn't have suffered as long as she did. Is she all right now? Your sister?" "She is. It took time, but she healed. She's married again now, to a good man who treats her like a queen. She has 2 beautiful children, but she still has nightmares sometimes about those years with the first husband." Penelope reached out and touched his hand. "I'm sorry that happened to her, and I'm grateful that you learned from it, even though the lesson came at such a terrible cost." Lucas looked down at her hand on his, and something shifted in his expression. "You should rest more." "I've been resting all day. I'm tired of sleeping. Talk to me. Tell me about yourself. Where are you from? What were you doing on that trail?" "I have a cattle ranch about 20 miles south of here, near Truckee. Small operation, just me and a few hired hands. Tommy is my nephew, my sister Catherine's boy. He's learning the business. Truckee is in the mountains, isn't it?" "Yes, beautiful country. Cold winters, but the summers are perfect. We were driving a small herd to sell in Virginia City when we found you." "Where's the herd now?" "Tommy drove them to a box canyon about a mile from here. They'll keep for a few days." "I'm costing you money," Penelope said. "The longer you stay here with me, the more you lose." "Money can be replaced. You can't. Don't worry about the cattle, Miss Ashford. Worry about getting well." They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything. Lucas told her about his ranch, about the challenges of raising cattle in the mountains, about his family. Penelope found herself relaxing despite the pain, drawn in by his steady presence and easy manner of speaking. He had a dry sense of humor that surprised her into laughing several times, even though it hurt her side to do so. "You should have been a storyteller instead of a rancher," she said. "Cattle don't care if you tell good stories. They just want food and water and to be left alone." "That sounds peaceful." "It is, most of the time. Though we do lose stock to mountain lions and bears now and then, and winters can be brutal. But I wouldn't trade it for anything." "You love it," Penelope said. "I can hear it in your voice." "I do. The land, the work, the independence of it all. My father was a shopkeeper in Missouri, spent his whole life behind a counter indoors, following other people's rules. I wanted something different. So you came west. So I came west. 10 years ago when I was 18. Worked as a hired hand on other men's ranches until I saved enough to buy my own land. It's not much, but it's mine. Penelope felt a pang of envy. That must be a wonderful feeling. Everything I owned came from my father. I never built anything myself. You're young yet, you'll have time. If I survive this, you mean. You're going to survive. The wound is clean. No signs of infection so far. You're young and strong. You'll heal. And then what? Marcus has my money. He probably thinks I'm dead by now, which means he'll forge documents to claim my share of the inheritance. By the time I make it back to San Francisco, everything will be gone. Lucas frowned. Surely there are laws to prevent that. There are, but they require proof. Marcus will say I died in an accident. He'll play the grieving brother. Who's going to believe that he tried to kill me for money? I'll believe it. Tommy will believe it. We'll testify on your behalf. You're a stranger from Truckee. Marcus is a respected businessman in San Francisco. Our family has connections, influence. Who do you think a judge will believe? The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. Lucas looked at her steadily. Then we'll find proof. We'll track him down and make him confess. How? I don't know yet, but I promise you this, Miss Ashford. I will not let your brother get away with what he did. One way or another, he'll answer for it. The conviction in his voice made Penelope want to believe him. You don't even know me. Why do you care so much about justice for a stranger? You're not a stranger anymore. And besides, this isn't just about you. It's about right and wrong. It's about making sure men like your brother don't prosper from their evil deeds. If we let him walk away, if we do nothing, then we're complicit in his crimes. Penelope felt tears pricking at her eyes again. You're a good man, Lucas Yates. He looked embarrassed. I'm just a rancher who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Now please, try to sleep. You need to conserve your strength. This time, Penelope did not argue. She closed her eyes and let herself drift off, feeling safer than she had any right to feel given the circumstances. Lucas Yates was keeping watch, and somehow that made all the difference. The next few days passed in a blur of pain and healing. Lucas changed her bandages twice a day, checking for signs of infection. He made her eat even when she had no appetite, spooning broth into her mouth with infinite patience. He helped her outside when necessary, turning his back to give her privacy while staying close enough to catch her if she fell. He was unfailingly gentle and respectful, never taking advantage of her vulnerability, never making her feel ashamed of her dependence on him. Tommy proved to be a cheerful companion, full of stories about life in Truckee and his aspirations to run his own ranch someday. He was only 19, gangly and awkward, with an infectious laugh that made even Penelope smile. He treated her like a favorite aunt, teasing her gently when she was well enough to take it, fetching whatever she needed without complaint. On the fourth day, Penelope managed to stand and walk a few steps without help. Lucas watched her carefully, ready to catch her if she stumbled, but there was pride in his eyes when she made it across the room and back. You're stronger than you look, he said. My father used to say I inherited my mother's stubbornness. I think he meant it as a compliment. It is a compliment. Stubbornness will keep you alive when nothing else will. That evening, as they sat around the fire, eating beans and hardtack, Penelope broached the subject that had been weighing on her mind. I need to go back to San Francisco, she said. As soon as I'm well enough to travel. Lucas nodded. I figured you would. Will you help me? I can pay you once I sort out the mess with my inheritance. I'll pay you well for your time and trouble. I don't want your money, Miss Ashford. Then what do you want? He looked at her across the fire, and something in his gaze made her heart beat faster. I want to see justice done. I want to make sure you're safe. Beyond that, I haven't thought much about what I want. You have a ranch to run, cattle to sell. You can't just abandon your life to help me chase down my criminal brother. Tommy can take the herd to Virginia City and handle the sale. He's ready for that responsibility. As for the ranch, my hired hands can manage without me for a few weeks. This is more important. Why? Penelope asked. Why is this more important than your livelihood? Lucas was quiet for a long time, staring into the flames. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. Because in 4 days of knowing you, I've come to care about what happens to you. Because the thought of your brother getting away with attempted murder makes my blood boil. Because every time I look at you, I see my sister Rebecca, and I remember what it felt like to be too late to prevent her suffering. This time I'm not too late. This time I can actually make a difference. Penelope's throat tightened. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just get well. The rest will sort itself out. But Penelope could not leave it at that. Lucas, look at me. He raised his eyes to meet hers. Thank you, she said, for everything, for saving my life, for caring for me, for believing me. I won't forget it. You're welcome. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. Tommy cleared his throat awkwardly, breaking the spell. I'm going to check on the horses, he announced, standing up quickly. Make sure they're settled for the night. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving Lucas and Penelope alone. The fire crackled between them, casting dancing shadows on the walls of the way station. He's a good kid, Penelope said. He is. Reminds me of myself at that age, full of dreams and ambition, thinking he can conquer the world. You don't think that anymore? I'm more realistic now. The world doesn't get conquered. It just gets survived, one day at a time. That's a bleak outlook. Lucas smiled slightly. I suppose it is. But there are good things too. Sunrises over the mountains, calves born in spring, coffee strong enough to strip paint, a day's work that leaves you tired but satisfied. Those things make the surviving worthwhile. You should add saving lives to that list, Penelope said softly. He looked at her, and the firelight made his eyes glow. Maybe I will. Penelope felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. She had known this man for only 4 days, but she felt safer with him than she had ever felt with Marcus, her own flesh and blood. There was a steadiness to Lucas Yates, a fundamental decency that made her want to trust him with more than just her physical safety. Can I ask you something personal? She said. You can ask. Can't promise I'll answer. Are you married, engaged, courting anyone? Lucas raised an eyebrow. That's forward. I almost died 4 days ago. Life is too short not to be forward. He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his serious face. Fair enough. No to all three. I was engaged once, years ago, to a girl back in Missouri. She didn't want to come west with me. Said she wouldn't live in the wilderness like a savage. So we parted ways. Do you regret it? Not for a minute. She would have been miserable in Truckee, and I would have been miserable anywhere else. Better to find out before the wedding than after. No one since. A few women here and there. Nothing serious. Ranch life doesn't leave much time for courting, and most women want a man who can give them a nice house in town. Not a cabin in the mountains. I've made my peace with the possibility that I might end up alone. That's sad. Is it? I'm happy with my life. Not every man needs a wife and children to feel fulfilled. But do you want a wife and children? Lucas shifted uncomfortably. Someday, maybe. If I found the right woman. Someone who could love the mountains as much as I do. Someone strong and independent, who wouldn't mind the isolation. Someone I could talk to at the end of a long day. That doesn't seem like too much to ask for. You'd be surprised. Most women I've met want parties and shopping and neighbors close by. The ranch is 30 miles from the nearest town. Winter snows can isolate us for weeks at a time. It takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that environment. Penelope thought about her life in San Francisco, with its crowded streets and social obligations and constant noise. I think I would like it, she said quietly. Lucas looked at her sharply. You've been out here less than a week, most of it spent recovering from a serious injury. That's not enough time to know what you would or wouldn't like. Maybe not, but I know I've spent my whole life surrounded by people, and most of them were liars or users, or both. My brother tried to kill me for money. My friends in San Francisco cared more about my father's fortune than about me. Even the men who courted me were more interested in my inheritance than my personality. At least in the wilderness, things are honest. An animal attacks because it's hungry, not because it wants what you have. The cold doesn't pretend to be your friend before it freezes you. That's a cynical view of humanity. Can you blame me? Lucas sighed. No, I suppose not. But not everyone is like your brother, Miss Ashford. There are still good people in the world. I know, I'm talking to one. He looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the compliment. Penelope found his modesty endearing. Marcus had always been quick to trumpet his own virtues, few as they were. Lucas Yates seemed constitutionally incapable of accepting praise. Tommy returned then, full of news about a coyote he had heard in the distance. The conversation shifted to safer topics, but Penelope found her eyes returning again and again to Lucas. She studied the strong line of his jaw, the way his hands moved as he gestured, the rare smile that softened his weathered face. She told herself it was gratitude she was feeling, nothing more. He had saved her life. It was natural to feel drawn to him. But deep down, she knew it was more than gratitude. There was something about Lucas Yates that called to her, something solid and true in a world that had proven itself treacherous. She barely knew him, and yet she found herself wanting to know everything. What made him laugh? What kept him awake at night? What did his ranch look like? What would it be like to sit on a porch with him, watching the sun set over the mountains? Dangerous thoughts, she told herself. He was being kind because kindness was his nature. He would help her get to San Francisco, help her confront Marcus, and then he would return to his ranch and his cattle and his solitary life. She would go back to whatever remained of her old life, and they would probably never see each other again. The thought made her inexplicably sad. Over the next few days, Penelope grew stronger. She could walk without pain, though Lucas insisted she take it slow. The wound was healing cleanly, showing no signs of infection. He changed the bandages less frequently now, trusting her body to do the work of repair. You'll have a scar, he told her one evening as he checked the stitches. I don't care about a scar, I care about staying alive. Still, I'm sorry. If I had been a better doctor, If you had been a better doctor, I would still have a scar. The knife went deep. Some marks don't fade, no matter how skilled the healer. Lucas met her eyes. I suppose that's true. Besides, Penelope said, trying to lighten the mood, it will make for an interesting story someday. How I was attacked by my brother and saved by a cowboy. I'm a cattleman, not a cowboy. Is there a difference? Cowboys are hired hands who drive cattle for other people. I own my herd. There's a difference. Well, excuse me for not knowing the proper terminology. I'm a city girl, remember? He smiled. I remember, though you're adapting well to roughing it. I don't have much choice. Do I? There's always a choice. You could have given up. You could have let despair win. But you keep fighting. That says something about your character. Penelope felt warmth spread through her chest. You know, when I was growing up, my father always said I should be more docile, more accommodating. He said men didn't like women who argued or had strong opinions. He said I needed to learn to bend if I ever wanted to find a husband. Your father was wrong. Was he? I'm 22 years old and unmarried. Most of my friends from finishing school have been wives for years. That doesn't mean your father was right. It just means you haven't found a man worthy of you yet. The words hung in the air between them. Penelope felt her breath catch. Lucas seemed to realize what he had said, because he cleared his throat and stood up quickly. "The stitches can come out tomorrow," he said. "You're healing faster than I expected. That's good news." "Yes, which means we need to make plans. If you're still set on going to San Francisco." "I am." "Then we should leave as soon as you're able to ride. Every day we wait is another day your brother has to consolidate his hold on your father's business." Penelope nodded, though the thought of confronting Marcus made her stomach clench with fear. "How long will it take to reach the city?" "From here? About a week, maybe less if we push hard. We'll need to stop in Truckee first so I can make arrangements for the ranch and get us properly outfitted for the journey. I don't have enough supplies with me for a trip that long." "Of course, whatever you think is best." Lucas looked at her for a long moment. "Are you afraid?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Penelope admitted. "Terrified, actually. Marcus tried to kill me once. What's to stop him from trying again when I show up alive?" "Me. I'm what's stopping him. I'll be with you every step of the way, and I promise you, he won't lay a hand on you. Not while I'm breathing." The fierce protectiveness in his voice made Penelope's heart race. "You can't watch me every minute of every day." "Watch me!" Despite her fear, Penelope smiled. "You're very stubborn, Mr. Yates." "So are you, Miss Ashford. I think we're well matched in that regard." The words seemed to surprise him as much as they surprised her. He cleared his throat again and turned away. "I should check on Tommy. He's supposed to be taking inventory of our supplies, but he probably got distracted." He left before Penelope could respond. She sat alone in the way station, her hand pressed against the bandage over her wound, and wondered what was happening between her and Lucas Yates. They had known each other for barely a week. She was grateful to him, certainly. She liked him, admired him, trusted him. But the feelings stirring in her chest felt like more than gratitude or admiration. They felt like the beginning of something deeper, something that both thrilled and terrified her. She told herself to be practical. Lucas had his life in Truckee, and she had her life in San Francisco, or what remained of it after Marcus's betrayal. They came from different worlds. Once this was over, once justice was served, they would go their separate ways. It was foolish to imagine anything else, but as she lay down to sleep that night, listening to Lucas and Tommy talking quietly by the fire, she could not help but imagine what it would be like if things were different, if she had met Lucas under normal circumstances, if she were free to pursue the feelings growing in her heart, if he felt the same way she did. Dangerous thoughts indeed. The next morning, Lucas removed her stitches with the same careful attention he had shown throughout her recovery. His hands were steady as he snipped the threads and gently pulled them free. Penelope watched his face as he worked, memorizing the concentration in his eyes, the slight furrow between his brows. "There," he said finally. "All done. How does it feel?" "Tender, but not painful. I can hardly believe how much better I feel compared to a week ago." "You're a fast healer. Most people would still be bedridden with a wound like that." "Or dead." "Or dead," Lucas agreed soberly. "Which brings us back to what we're going to do about your brother. I've been thinking about it, and I have some ideas. I'm listening. First, we need evidence. Right now, it's your word against his, and as you pointed out, he has more credibility in San Francisco society than you do. But if we can find witnesses who saw him return alone, who heard him tell lies about what happened to you, that changes things. All right, what else? We need to secure your legal rights to your inheritance. Is there a lawyer you trust?" Penelope thought about the various attorneys her father had employed. "There's Mr. Harrison. He drafted my father's will. He always seemed honest, and he knew father wanted Marcus and me to inherit equally." "Good. We'll go to him first when we reach the city. Get his advice on how to proceed. Marcus will have already been to see him. He'll have spun some story about my death. Then we'll unspin it. You showing up alive will throw a wrench in whatever plans he's made." Penelope nodded slowly. "There's something else we need to consider. Marcus is not just greedy. He's dangerous. If he was willing to stab me and leave me for dead once, he might try again when he realizes I survived. I know. That's why I'm coming with you, and why we're going to be very careful about how we approach this. You're putting yourself in danger for me. Lucas shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time I've been in danger. At least this time it's for a good cause. Tommy appeared in the doorway, looking excited. The horses are ready when you are. I can't wait to get back to civilization. No offense to the way station, but I miss real beds and hot food. Lucas smiled. None taken. How do you feel about riding, Miss Ashford? Think you're up for it. Penelope stood and took a few experimental steps. The wound pulled slightly, but the pain was manageable. I think so. Let's find out. They packed up their few belongings and mounted the horses. Lucas helped Penelope into the saddle, his hands lingering on her waist for just a moment longer than necessary. Their eyes met, and Penelope felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. If you need to stop at any point, say so, Lucas told her. Don't try to push through pain. You're still healing. I'll be fine. Stubborn woman. You say that like it's a bad thing. He grinned. Maybe I'm starting to appreciate it. They rode east toward Truckee, the July sun beating down on them. The landscape gradually shifted from arid scrubland to rolling foothills dotted with pine trees. As they climbed in elevation, the air grew cooler and sweeter, and Penelope found herself relaxing despite the soreness in her side. There was something cleansing about the wide open spaces, the endless sky, the mountains rising in the distance. It's beautiful here, she said. Lucas looked pleased. Wait until you see Truckee. The town itself isn't much to speak of, but the country around it is the prettiest I've ever seen. Lakes so blue they don't look real. Forests that go on for miles. In winter, the snow piles up higher than a man's head. Sounds isolated. It is. That's part of what I love about it. They stopped to rest the horses beside a creek. Tommy wandered off to scout ahead, while Lucas helped Penelope dismount. She stumbled slightly, and he caught her, his arms strong and sure around her. Easy, he said. You're doing great, but don't overdo it. Penelope looked up at him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. She could feel the warmth of his body, smell the scent of leather and sage that clung to him. His green eyes searched her face, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. Her heart hammered in her chest. But Lucas stepped back, clearing his throat. You should drink some water. Stay hydrated in this heat. The moment passed, leaving Penelope feeling oddly bereft. She drank from the canteen he offered, trying to calm her racing pulse. What was wrong with her? Why did she keep hoping for something more from him when he had given no indication that he saw her as anything other than a woman in need of help? Maybe he didn't feel the same attraction she did. Maybe she was reading too much into his kindness. Maybe she was just lonely and traumatized and latching onto the first man who showed her genuine care. But when she looked at Lucas kneeling by the creek to refill the canteens, the sunlight gilding his hair, she knew it was more than that. She was falling for him hard and fast, and there did not seem to be anything she could do to stop it. They reached Truckee as the sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of gold and pink. The town was small, just a main street with a handful of buildings, a general store, a saloon, a hotel, a church. But it was nestled in a valley so achingly beautiful that Penelope caught her breath at the sight of it. Home, Lucas said simply, and the satisfaction in his voice was unmistakable. They stopped first at Tommy's mother's house, a neat cabin on the edge of town. Catherine Yates came rushing out when she heard the horses, her face lighting up at the sight of her son and brother. Lucas! Tommy! Thank God you're back safe. I was starting to worry. She caught sight of Penelope, and her expression shifted to curiosity. And who is this? This is Miss Penelope Ashford, Lucas said. She ran into some trouble on the trail. We've been helping her recover. Catherine's gaze sharpened, taking in Penelope's pale face and the careful way she was sitting in the saddle. What kind of trouble? The bad kind. Can we come inside? It's a long story. Over coffee and fresh bread, Lucas told his sister everything. Catherine listened with growing horror, her hand flying to her mouth when he described finding Penelope bleeding in the trail. Your own brother did this to you? She asked Penelope. How could anyone be so cruel? Greed makes monsters of men, Penelope said quietly. I trusted him completely. That was my mistake. It wasn't a mistake to trust family. He's the one who's wrong, not you. Catherine reached across the table and squeezed Penelope's hand. You poor dear. You're safe now, though. Lucas won't let anything happen to you. I know, Penelope said, and meant it. Catherine insisted that Penelope stay with her while Lucas made preparations for the journey to San Francisco. You need proper food and rest before undertaking a trip like that, and you'll want a hot bath and clean clothes. I have some dresses that might fit you. Penelope accepted gratefully. That night, after bathing away the grime of the trail and putting on a clean dress, she sat with Catherine by the fire while Lucas met with his ranch hands to discuss the care of his property in his absence. My brother likes you, Catherine said without preamble. Penelope felt her cheeks warm. He's been very kind to me. It's more than kindness. I've known Lucas his whole life, and I've never seen him look at a woman the way he looks at you. You're imagining things. Am I? He's taking weeks away from his ranch to escort you to San Francisco and help you reclaim your inheritance. That's not something he would do for just anyone. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do. He said so himself. Catherine smiled knowingly. Lucas always needs a practical reason for doing things. He doesn't like to admit when he's acting on emotion, but trust me, this is personal for him. Has been since the moment he brought you to that way station. Even if that's true, Penelope said carefully, it doesn't matter. Once this is resolved, he'll go back to his ranch, and I'll go back to whatever is left of my life in San Francisco. We live in different worlds. Worlds can change. Lives can change. Don't assume you know how this story ends before you've lived it. Penelope wanted to believe her, but fear held her back. She had been betrayed so thoroughly by Marcus that trusting her own judgment felt impossible. How could she be sure that what she felt for Lucas was real and not just a product of her circumstances? How could she know if he truly cared for her or was simply being the good man he clearly was? I'm scared, she admitted. Of Marcus, of losing what's left of my father's legacy, of trusting the wrong person again. I feel like the ground beneath my feet has turned to quicksand. Catherine nodded sympathetically. That's understandable. You've been through a terrible ordeal. But you're stronger than you think, Penelope. You survived an attack that would have killed most people. You're healing. You're fighting back. Don't let fear make you smaller than you are. Lucas said something similar. He's a smart man, my brother. Stubborn as a mule, but smart. They talked late into the night, and Penelope found herself warming to Catherine. She was forthright and practical, with a sharp sense of humor that reminded Penelope of Lucas. She spoke lovingly of her son Tommy and her husband Daniel, who was away working on the Transcontinental Railroad. She asked Penelope about her life in San Francisco, about her father, about her hopes and dreams. What will you do if you get your inheritance back? Catherine asked. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Sell the shipping business, probably. I don't know how to run it, and Marcus has poisoned it for me anyway. And then? Then nothing. I'll have money but no purpose. My father ran his business for 40 years. It defined his life. I don't have anything like that. Maybe this is your chance to find something, to build a life that's truly yours, not just an inheritance from your father. The idea was appealing but frightening. Penelope had never had to define herself before. She had been her father's daughter, a member of San Francisco society, an heiress. Without those labels, who was she? Lucas returned late, looking tired but satisfied. Everything's arranged, he told Catherine. The hands will manage the ranch while I'm gone. We can leave for San Francisco the day after tomorrow. So soon? Catherine asked. The longer we wait, the more time Marcus has to cover his tracks. We need to move fast. Penelope felt a knot of anxiety form in her stomach. I'm not sure I'm ready. Lucas sat down across from her, his expression gentle. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing to try, and you're not doing this alone. I'll be with you. Why? The question burst out of her before she could stop it. Why are you doing all this for me? What do you get out of it? Lucas looked surprised by the question. I told you, it's the right thing to do. That's not good enough. People don't upend their lives for strangers just because it's right. There has to be more to it than that. He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Catherine stood up. I'm going to check on Tommy, she announced, even though Tommy had gone to bed hours ago. She left the room, giving them privacy. Lucas leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. You want the truth? Yes. The truth is that when I found you bleeding in that trail, something inside me shifted. I looked at you and I didn't see a stranger. I saw someone worth saving, worth protecting, worth knowing. And over these past days, as I've gotten to know you, that feeling has only grown stronger. You're brave and stubborn and surprisingly funny for someone who almost died. You don't complain even when you're clearly in pain. You face hard truths without flinching. I admire that. I admire you. Penelope's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Lucas, I'm not done. The other truth is that I've been alone for a long time. By choice, mostly. I told myself I was content with my ranch and my cattle and my solitary life. But then you came along and made me realize that maybe I've been lying to myself. Maybe I've been alone because I hadn't met anyone who made me want to be otherwise. Until now. The silence that followed was deafening. Penelope could not breathe, could not think. Lucas was looking at her with such raw honesty that it made her chest ache. I don't expect anything from you, he continued. I know you've been through hell. I know trusting anyone probably feels impossible right now, but I wanted you to know why I'm doing this. Not because it's right, though it is. Not because I'm a good man, though I try to be. I'm doing it because the thought of you facing your brother alone is unbearable to me. Because I want to know that you're safe and happy and that you got justice. Because in a very short time, you've come to matter to me in ways I didn't think were possible anymore. Penelope felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to be honest with you. She stood up and so did he. They faced each other across the small room, the fire crackling between them. Penelope took a step toward him, then another. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the roughness of his stubble against her palm. You matter to me too, she whispered. I've been trying not to let myself feel it because I'm so afraid. Afraid that I'm wrong about you. Afraid that this is just gratitude or trauma talking. Afraid that I'll lose you the way I've lost everyone else. But the truth is that I think about you constantly. When I wake up, you're the first thing on my mind. When I'm in pain, your voice is what grounds me. When I imagine my future, you're in it. And that terrifies me. Lucas covered her hand with his own, pressing it against his cheek. I'm not going anywhere, Penelope. Not until you tell me to go. What if I never tell you to go? Then I'll stay. The kiss, when it came, was gentle and sweet and full of promise. Lucas's lips were soft against hers, his hands cupping her face with infinite care. Penelope felt like she was falling and flying at the same time, her whole body singing with the rightness of it. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. I've wanted to do that for days, Lucas admitted. Why didn't you? Because you were hurt and vulnerable, and I didn't want to take advantage. You're a better man than most. Or a more cowardly one. I almost lost my nerve entirely. Penelope smiled and kissed him again, longer this time. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. What happens now? She asked. Now we go to San Francisco. We confront your brother. We reclaim what's yours. And after that? After that, we figure things out. Together if you want. I want, Penelope said firmly. I definitely want. They stood there holding each other until Catherine returned, trying and failing to hide her knowing smile. I take it you two worked things out? You could say that, Lucas said, grinning like a fool. About time. Now both of you get some sleep. You have a long journey ahead of you. Penelope slept that night in a real bed for the first time in over a week, and she slept deeply and dreamlessly, feeling safe and hopeful for the first time since her father's death. They left Truckee 2 days later, well stocked with supplies and mounted on fresh horses. Catherine hugged them both goodbye, whispering to Penelope to take care of her brother and to come back and visit soon. Tommy waved from the porch, having decided to stay behind and help his mother rather than make the long trip to San Francisco. The journey took 6 days of hard riding. They pushed west through the mountains, following trails that Lucas knew from previous trips. At night, they camped under the stars, and Lucas held Penelope close, mindful of her still healing wound. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, learning each other's stories, sharing dreams and fears. What will you do if we manage to get your inheritance back? Lucas asked one night. I've been thinking about that. I think I'll sell the shipping business and most of the property in San Francisco. I don't want to live there anymore. Too many bad memories. Where will you go? Penelope looked at him in the firelight. That depends. On what? On whether a certain cattleman would be willing to share his life with a former city girl who doesn't know the first thing about ranching. Lucas sat up straighter. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that I've fallen in love with you, Lucas Yates. I'm saying that the happiest I've been in my entire life was staying in your sister's cabin in Truckee, imagining what it would be like to build a life there. I'm saying that I don't want to say goodbye to you when this is over, if you'll have me. Lucas pulled her into his arms, careful of her injury. If I'll have you? Penelope, I've been halfway in love with you since I saw you refuse to give up in that way station. I want you in my life, in my home, in my bed. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to teach you about cattle and ranching and mountain winters. I want to grow old with you. Is this your way of proposing? I suppose it is. I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a couple of weeks. But when you know, you know. So yes, Penelope Ashford, I'm asking you to marry me. Will you? Penelope kissed him with all the passion and hope in her heart. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They made love for the first time that night under the vast expanse of stars, careful and tender with each other. Penelope had been warned by married friends that intimacy could be painful or awkward, but with Lucas it felt natural and right, like coming home to a place she had been searching for her whole life. Afterward, lying in his arms, she traced patterns on his chest. I can't believe I'm engaged. A month ago, I thought I would never marry. What changed your mind? I met someone worth marrying. Lucas kissed the top of her head. We'll have a good life, Penelope. I promise you that. It won't be easy, and there will be hard times, but we'll face them together. I'm not afraid of hard work, and I'm not afraid of isolation. Not as long as I have you. You'll have me. Always. They reached San Francisco on a foggy afternoon, the city rising from the bay like something out of a dream. Penelope felt a complicated mix of emotions as they rode through streets that had once been so familiar. This had been her home, but it felt alien to her now. She was different, changed. The girl who had left San Francisco 2 months ago had been naive and trusting. The woman returning was harder, wiser, and infinitely stronger. They went first to Mr. Harrison's law office. The clerk's eyes widened when he saw Penelope. Miss Ashford, but we were told you were dead. Clearly those reports were exaggerated. Is Mr. Harrison available? The lawyer came rushing out of his office, his face pale with shock. Miss Ashford, this is impossible. Your brother said you died in an accident. My brother lied. He tried to murder me, Mr. Harrison. He stabbed me and left me to die on a trail outside Virginia City. I survived, and I'm here to reclaim what's rightfully mine." She told him the whole story, with Lucas providing corroboration. Mr. Harrison listened with growing anger. "This is outrageous. I drew up your father's will myself. I know his wishes. He wanted you and Marcus to inherit equally. For Marcus to do this," he shook his head, "I'm ashamed to say I believed him when he came to me with news of your death. He seemed genuinely grief-stricken. He's a good actor. Where is he now?" "I don't know. That's what we need to find out." Mr. Harrison stood up. "Leave it to me. I'll make inquiries. And in the meantime, I'll file papers challenging any claims Marcus has made to your share of the estate. With you alive and willing to testify, his fraud will be exposed. Will he face criminal charges? For fraud, certainly. For attempted murder, that will depend on whether the authorities believe your testimony. Do you have any proof?" Lucas spoke up. "I have the knife we pulled from her side. It has her blood on it. And my nephew and I can both testify to finding her, and to her condition." "That's good. But it's still your word against his. We'll need more." "Then we'll find more," Penelope said. "Whatever it takes." Over the next few days, they built their case. Mr. Harrison discovered that Marcus had indeed been spreading the story of Penelope's accidental death and had started the process of claiming her share of the inheritance. But he had made mistakes, been too eager, too confident. Several of their father's business associates had found his story suspicious and his behavior inappropriate. They were willing to testify that Marcus had shown no real grief, only interest in liquidating assets. Penelope also learned something that chilled her blood. Marcus had been in significant gambling debt. He had borrowed heavily from dangerous men, using his expected inheritance as collateral. He had been desperate, and that desperation had driven him to murder. "He was always weak," Penelope told Lucas one night in their hotel room. "Always looking for easy money, easy success. Father tried to teach him the value of hard work, but Marcus never learned. He wanted the rewards without the effort. And now he'll pay the price," Lucas said. "The law will catch up with him." It happened faster than they expected. Marcus was arrested 3 days after Penelope arrived in the city, trying to board a ship bound for South America. He had realized that something was wrong when he started hearing rumors that his sister had been seen alive in the city. He had panicked and tried to flee. When Penelope faced him across the courtroom during his arraignment, she felt nothing but pity. He looked haggard and desperate, nothing like the confident brother she had known. His eyes widened when he saw her, and for a moment something like relief crossed his face. "Penny," he said, "thank God. I thought you were dead. I've been sick with worry." "Don't," Penelope interrupted. "Don't lie anymore, Marcus. It's over. I know what you did. Everyone knows what you did." His expression hardened. "You can't prove anything." "Yes, I can. I have the knife. I have witnesses. I have your own actions as evidence. You reported me dead before you could possibly have known for certain. You started liquidating assets within days. You were so confident in your crime that you got sloppy." Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, that Marcus had acted in good faith based on the information he had, but no one believed him. The evidence was too strong. Marcus's guilt too obvious. In the end, Marcus was convicted of fraud and attempted murder. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. As they led him away, he looked at Penelope one last time. "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time, he sounded like he meant it. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just couldn't see another way out." "There's always another way," Penelope said. "You just chose the wrong one." With Marcus in prison and her inheritance secured, Penelope set about settling her father's affairs. She sold the shipping business to a consortium of investors, along with most of the property in San Francisco. She kept a few pieces of her mother's jewelry and some of her father's books, but everything else was liquidated. By the time she was done, she had more money than she could spend in a lifetime. "What are you going to do with all of it?" Lucas asked. "Keep enough to live comfortably and invest the rest. Mr. Harrison suggested a bank in Sacramento that offers good returns. The income will be more than sufficient for our needs." "Our needs? Penelope, I'm not marrying you for your money." "I know that, but we are getting married, and what's mine is yours. I want to use this money to build something good. Your ranch, our home, maybe help your sister and Tommy. Turn something that came from greed and betrayal into something positive." Lucas pulled her close. "Have I mentioned that I love you?" "Not in the last hour. I love you. You're the strongest, most generous woman I've ever known," says the man who saved my life and asked for nothing in return. "I got everything in return. I got you." They were married in a small ceremony in Truckee 6 weeks after returning from San Francisco. Catherine cried happy tears throughout the whole thing. Tommy served as Lucas's best man, grinning like a fool. The minister who married them was the same one who had baptized Lucas as a baby. Penelope wore a simple ivory dress that Catherine had helped her sew. She carried wildflowers picked that morning from the meadow near Lucas's ranch. Lucas wore his best suit, his hair freshly cut, looking so handsome that Penelope's breath caught when she saw him. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, and Penelope felt tears prick her eyes. She had never expected this, never imagined that her brother's betrayal would lead her to the love of her life. But here she was, about to marry a good man who made her laugh and challenged her and loved her with his whole heart. "I do," she said when the time came, her voice clear and strong. "I do," Lucas echoed, and the smile on his face could have lit up the whole valley. They kissed as husband and wife, and Penelope felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was where she was meant to be. This was who she was meant to be with. All the pain and fear and uncertainty had led her here, to this moment, to this man. The reception was held at Catherine's house with all of Lucas's friends and neighbors in attendance. They ate and drank and danced until late into the night. Penelope met what felt like half of Truckee, and everyone welcomed her warmly. They all seemed to think Lucas had made an excellent choice, and she privately agreed with them. "Happy?" Lucas asked as they danced together under the stars. "Deliriously. You? More than I ever thought possible. I love you, Mrs. Yates. I love you too, Mr. Yates. Now take me home." Home was Lucas's ranch, 30 miles from Truckee proper. Penelope fell in love with it the moment she saw it. The cabin was modest but well built, with a stone fireplace and large windows that looked out over the valley. There was a barn for the horses and cattle, a chicken coop, a vegetable garden that needed tending. It was simple and rustic and absolutely perfect. "What do you think?" Lucas asked, watching her nervously. "I think it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I think I'm going to be very happy here." And she was. Penelope took to ranch life with surprising ease. She learned to milk cows and tend chickens and ride horses like she had been born to it. Lucas taught her patiently, never making her feel foolish for her mistakes. She in turn taught him things she had learned in San Francisco: how to keep better books for the ranch, how to negotiate better prices for his cattle, how to plan for the future. They worked side by side through that first summer and fall, building their life together. Penelope loved the physical labor, the way it tired her body and cleared her mind. She loved the isolation, the silence broken only by wind and birdsong. Most of all, she loved sharing it all with Lucas, seeing him in his element, confident and capable. Winter came early and hard that year, just as Lucas had warned. The snow piled up until it was nearly impossible to leave the ranch, but Penelope did not mind. She and Lucas spent long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other, playing cards, making love. They talked about everything and nothing, their conversations ranging from the profound to the ridiculous. "Do you ever regret leaving San Francisco?" Lucas asked one night. "Never, not even for a moment. That life was never really mine. It was my father's life, my father's dreams. This is mine, ours. Even with all the hard work, the isolation, especially because of that, I like working hard for something that matters, and I'm never lonely. How could I be when I have you? Lucas kissed her gently. I was so worried you would change your mind, that you would wake up one day and realize you had made a mistake marrying a rancher and moving to the middle of nowhere. The only mistake would have been letting you go. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Lucas Yates. You saved my life in more ways than one. You saved mine too. I didn't even realize how lonely I was until you showed up and filled all the empty spaces. Spring brought new life to the ranch. Calves were born, the garden started producing, and Penelope discovered she was pregnant. She told Lucas on a warm May evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. You're sure? He asked, his voice full of wonder. I'm sure. The doctor and Truckee confirmed it yesterday when I went to town. Lucas pulled her into his arms, holding her close. A baby! We're going to have a baby! Are you happy? Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Overwhelmed, terrified, thrilled, all of it at once. Penelope laughed. That's exactly how I feel. Their son was born in January of 1876, during a winter storm that kept the doctor from reaching them in time. Catherine came instead, arriving on snowshoes with her medical bag, and helped Penelope through the long night of labor. Lucas paced the cabin like a caged animal until Catherine finally called him in to meet his son. He's perfect, Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion as he held the tiny bundle. He has your eyes, Penelope said tiredly. Poor child. Lucas laughed. What's wrong with my eyes? Nothing. I just wanted more people in the world with those beautiful green eyes. Now we have one. They named him Daniel, after Catherine's husband, and he was the joy of their lives. Penelope had never known she could love something so fiercely, so completely. Watching Lucas with their son, seeing the gentle way he held Daniel, hearing him sing lullabies in a voice rough with love, made Penelope fall in love with her husband all over again. You're a natural father, she told him one night as he rocked Daniel to sleep. I'm terrified every minute that I'll do something wrong. That's how I feel too. But we'll figure it out together. They did figure it out, learning as they went, making mistakes and correcting them, celebrating every milestone. Daniel grew strong and healthy, with his father's green eyes and his mother's dark hair. He was a happy baby, curious about everything, already showing signs of the adventurous spirit that would define his childhood. 2 years later, they had a daughter. Lily was born on a warm June day with far less drama than Daniel's birth. She came into the world screaming her displeasure and did not stop for what felt like months. But even sleep-deprived and exhausted, Penelope and Lucas adored her. She has your spirit, Lucas said one night after finally getting Lily to sleep. Poor child, Penelope said, echoing his words from Daniel's birth. I wouldn't have it any other way. Strong women change the world. Strong women keep you on your toes, you mean? That too. The years passed in a blur of seasons and milestones. Daniel and Lily grew up on the ranch, learning to ride and rope and work alongside their parents. The ranch prospered under Lucas and Penelope's careful management, growing from a small operation to one of the most successful in the area. They hired additional hands, built a bigger barn, expanded the herd. But success did not change the fundamental nature of their lives. They still lived simply, still valued hard work and honesty, and family above all else. They still sat on the porch on summer evenings, watching the sunset, holding hands like newlyweds. Tommy married a girl from Sacramento and started his own ranch nearby. Catherine's husband, Daniel, returned from railroad work and opened a store in Truckee. The family stayed close, gathering for holidays and celebrations, supporting each other through hard times. Penelope never returned to San Francisco. She kept track of her investments through correspondence with Mr. Harrison, but she had no desire to revisit the city of her youth. That life belonged to a different person, someone she barely recognized anymore. She was Penelope Yates now, rancher's wife, mother, member of a community that valued her for who she was, not what she owned. Marcus served 15 years of his sentence before being released for good behavior. He wrote to Penelope once from prison, a long letter full of apologies and regret. She did not respond immediately, needing time to process her feelings. But eventually she wrote back, telling him she had forgiven him, though she could never forget what he had done. She sent him money to help him start over and wished him well, then closed that chapter of her life for good. "That was generous of you," Lucas said when she told him. "He's still my brother, and carrying around hate was exhausting. I'd rather forgive and move on. You're a better person than I am. I'm not sure I could forgive someone who tried to kill the woman I love. You don't have to forgive him. I'm doing it for me, not for him. Forgiveness is what finally sets me free." On their 10th wedding anniversary, Lucas surprised Penelope with a trip to Lake Tahoe. They left Daniel and Lily with Catherine and spent 3 days alone together, reliving their early courtship, remembering how they had fallen in love. "Do you remember the way station?" Lucas asked as they walked along the lake shore. "How could I forget? I was half dead and you were stitching me up with fishing line. Not my finest moment as a doctor. I thought you were very impressive, bossy and overconfident, but impressive." Lucas pulled her close. "I fell in love with you in that way station. Did you know that?" "When?" "I was mostly unconscious. The first night, when you asked me why I was being kind to you. You were so surprised that anyone would help you without wanting something in return. It broke my heart. I wanted to show you that not everyone was like your brother, that there were still good people in the world. You did show me that. You saved my life, and then you gave me a life worth living. We built it together." "Yes, we did." They made love that night, with all the passion and tenderness of their first time, then lay in each other's arms, watching moonlight ripple across the lake. "I love you, Penelope Yates," Lucas said. "I love you too, Lucas Yates. Thank you for stopping on that trail. Thank you for not riding past. Thank you for surviving, for fighting, for choosing me. I'll choose you every time, in this life and whatever comes after." They returned to the ranch, refreshed and reconnected, ready to face whatever challenges the next years would bring. And there were challenges: droughts and harsh winters, sick cattle and broken equipment, the normal struggles of ranch life. But they faced them together, just as they had promised, and their love only grew stronger. Daniel grew into a serious, thoughtful young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. He learned everything Lucas could teach him about cattle and land management, and everyone knew he would take over the operation someday. Lily, meanwhile, showed an early talent for drawing and painting. She filled sketchbooks with images of the ranch, the mountains, her family. Penelope encouraged her artistic pursuits, even as Lily helped with ranch chores. "She's got your independent streak," Lucas observed one day, watching their 16-year-old daughter argue passionately for why she should be allowed to attend art school in Sacramento. "God help us all," Penelope said, but she was smiling. They let Lily go to Sacramento for a year, with the understanding that she would return home afterward to decide her future. She came back full of ideas and energy, having fallen in love with both art and a young teacher at the school. Penelope and Lucas approved of the match, and Lily was married at 20, in the same spot where her parents had wed. Daniel married at 23, bringing his bride Sarah to live at the ranch. She fit seamlessly into the family, taking to ranch life with the same enthusiasm Penelope had shown years earlier. They had 4 children in quick succession, filling the expanded ranch house with noise and laughter. Lucas and Penelope became grandparents with grace and joy, spoiling their grandchildren while maintaining enough discipline to keep them in line. They taught the children to ride and rope, told them stories of the old days, passed down the values that had sustained them through decades of marriage. Can you believe we've been married 30 years? Penelope asked on their anniversary, looking at Lucas across the dinner table. His hair was more silver than brown now, his face weathered by decades of sun and wind, but his green eyes still made her heart skip a beat. Best 30 years of my life, he said. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. They taught us what we were made of, and they made the good parts that much sweeter. They walked out to the porch after dinner, as they had done thousands of times before. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Penelope leaned against Lucas, and he wrapped his arm around her waist, holding her close. Do you ever think about that day on the trail? She asked. About how different things would have been if you had ridden past. I try not to. The thought of you dying out there, alone and hurt, is still too painful to contemplate. But you didn't ride past. You stopped. You saved me. And look at everything that came from it. Our children, our grandchildren, this life we built. All because you made the choice to help a stranger. You were never a stranger. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were meant to be part of my life. Was it like that for you too? That sense of recognition? Yes, absolutely yes. I looked at you and I knew. I didn't understand it then, but I felt it. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. Inside the house, they could hear Daniel and Sarah settling the grandchildren for the night, the sounds of family and home and continuity. This was what they had built together. Not just a ranch or a business, but a legacy of love and hard work and resilience. I would do it all again, Penelope said quietly. Every hard moment, every challenge, every fear. I would go through it all again if it meant ending up here with you. Lucas turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face with the same gentleness he had shown that first day at the way station. As would I. Loving you has been the great adventure of my life, Penelope Yates. You took a lonely rancher and made him into a husband, a father, a grandfather. You brought light and laughter and love to these mountains. You're my heart, and you're mine, forever and always. They kissed as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. The trail where Marcus had left Penelope bleeding was long behind them, forgotten except as the unlikely beginning of the greatest love story either of them had ever known. The years continued to pass, bringing with them the inevitable changes of age. Lucas moved a bit slower now, his joints stiff on cold mornings. Penelope's dark hair had gone silver, and she wore spectacles to read. But they were still healthy and active, still working the ranch alongside Daniel, still deeply in love. They celebrated their 40th anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren, the ranch house bursting with family. Daniel gave a toast that brought tears to everyone's eyes, talking about the example his parents had set, the legacy of love and dedication they had created. Lily had painted a portrait of Lucas and Penelope from their wedding day, capturing the joy and hope in their young faces. We were so young, Penelope marveled, looking at the painting. We were, Lucas agreed. But we knew what we wanted, we knew what mattered. Do you have any regrets? He pulled her close. Not a single one. You? None. Well, maybe one. What's that? I wish I could go back and tell that terrified girl bleeding on the trail that everything was going to be all right, that the man who stopped to help her would become her whole world, that pain and betrayal would lead to love and happiness beyond her wildest dreams. I wish I could tell her not to be afraid. She wouldn't have believed you. No, probably not, but it would have been nice to try. They stood together looking at the portrait, remembering. Then Lucas took her hand and led her out to the porch. Their spot, their sanctuary. The mountains rose dark against the star-filled sky, eternal and unchanging. Somewhere an owl hooted. The wind whispered through the pine trees. Thank you, Penelope said. For what? For stopping. For caring. For loving me through 40 years of marriage. for giving me a life I never knew I wanted, but can't imagine living without, for being exactly who you are. Lucas kissed her softly. Thank you for surviving, for trusting me, for choosing this life, this place, this simple rancher, for making every day an adventure, for being my partner in everything. They sat together in the gathering darkness, holding hands, hearts full. The trail that had brought them together was long behind them now, but its legacy lived on in the family they had created, the love they had nurtured, the life they had built together in these beautiful mountains. Marcus's betrayal, meant to destroy Penelope, had instead led her to her destiny. The cowboy who stopped the bleeding had healed more than just her body. He had healed her heart, her spirit, her faith in the goodness of people. And every day for 40 years, Lucas had proven that he was worthy of that faith. Every day he had shown up, worked hard, loved deeply. Every day he had chosen her, just as she had chosen him. That was the real miracle, Penelope thought. Not the dramatic rescue or the perfect timing, but the daily decision to love, to commit, to build something lasting. What are you thinking about? Lucas asked. How lucky I am, how grateful, how deeply, completely, impossibly happy. Same, he said simply, and squeezed her hand. They sat there until the stars wheeled overhead and the night grew cold. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and created a love story for the ages. The bleeding had stopped long ago, but the healing continued still, in every shared glance, every gentle touch, every quiet moment of companionship. They had taken something broken and made it whole. They had turned tragedy into triumph, pain into purpose, betrayal into belonging. And they had done it together, on a ranch in the mountains, far from the life Penelope had once known, but exactly where she was always meant to be. With the man who had stopped to help a stranger bleeding on a trail and found his soulmate instead. With Lucas Yates, her rescuer, her partner, her heart. The story that began with blood and betrayal ended with love and legacy, exactly as it should. And if either of them looked back on that terrible day when Marcus left Penelope to die, it was only to marvel at how beautifully everything had turned out, how perfectly the pieces had fallen into place, how wonderfully life could surprise you when you least expected it. They lived many more good years together on that ranch, growing old side by side, watching their grandchildren have children of their own, secure in the knowledge that they had built something that would outlast them. And when their time finally came to leave this world, they went peacefully, holding hands as they had done for more than 50 years of marriage, their last thoughts of each other, and the incredible journey they had shared. The ranch stayed in the family for generations, the story of Lucas and Penelope passed down like precious heirloom, a reminder that love could bloom in the most unexpected places and that kindness could change the course of a life. The way station where he had first treated her wounds became something of a landmark, a place where young couples would visit to hear the story and dream of finding love like that for themselves. And high in the mountains above Truckee, where the air was clean and the stars bright and the land rolled on forever. The legacy of the cowboy who stopped the bleeding and the woman he saved lived on in the hearts and minds of all who knew their story. It was a story of survival and second chances, of trust rebuilt and love discovered, of two wounded souls who found healing in each other's arms. It was, quite simply, a story of everything love could and should be. And it all started with a choice Lucas made on a dusty California trail in the summer of 1874 when he saw a woman bleeding and decided to stop. That single act of compassion changed two lives forever, creating a ripple effect that touched generations. From tragedy came triumph, from pain came purpose, and from a moment of terrible betrayal came a lifetime of beautiful love. That was the true magic of Lucas and Penelope's story. Not that it was easy or perfect, but that it was real. Two imperfect people who chose each other every single day, who worked through challenges and celebrated victories, who built a life and a family and a legacy worth remembering. They proved that love could survive anything if both people were willing to fight for it. That healing was possible, even from the deepest wounds. That sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. And so their story ended not with sorrow, but with satisfaction, not with regret, but with gratitude, not with questions, but with answers. They had lived fully, loved completely, and left behind a family who understood the value of both. The bleeding had stopped the day Lucas found Penelope on that trail, but the love that began that same day never stopped flowing. It continued through decades and generations, a river of devotion that nourished everyone it touched. That was their gift to the world, proof that love could heal, that kindness mattered, that choosing to stop and help a stranger could change everything. Lucas and Penelope Yates lived that truth every day of their long, happy marriage, and their descendants carried it forward long after they were gone. The ranch in the mountains stood as a monument to what they had built together, but the real monument was in the hearts of everyone who knew their story and believed, because of them, that true love was not just a fairy tale, but a possibility worth pursuing. And every summer, when the wildflowers bloomed in the meadow where they had married, people said you could still feel their presence there. Two souls so perfectly matched that not even death could truly separate them. They had stopped the bleeding and healed each other, and in doing so, they had created something eternal. A love story for the ages, born in blood and hardship, nurtured through dedication and devotion, and lasting far beyond the boundaries of any single lifetime. That was how it ended and how it began and how it continued in memory and legacy, with love, always love, the kind that stops bleeding and heals wounds and transforms lives. The kind that Lucas and Penelope had found together on a California trail in 1874 and kept alive through more than 50 years of marriage. The kind that never truly dies, but lives on in every heart it touches and every life it changes. Their story was complete, fully closed, with every thread resolved and every question answered. They had loved, they had lived, they had triumphed over betrayal and built something beautiful. And that was enough. More than enough, it was everything.